If I can't help you, what's the point of me?
Don't be so hard on yourself. You do so many things like... No, everything she does is for the hotel actually. Which makes a shocking amount of sense for her character. When Has-Been's pilot aired all the way back in 2019, it gave us a pretty solid impression of what her character will be like. A sidekick. Vaggie is strong, outspoken and willing to fight, yet what she fights for isn't her own goal, it's Charlie's, who is an optimistic, naive dreamer with a head so far up in the clouds she might hit an airplane, and therefore Vaggie's polar opposite. This dichotomy is the baseline of their dynamic. Charlie is a pacifist, Vaggie carries a spear everywhere she goes. Charlie trusts everyone, Vaggie trusts no one but Charlie. And most importantly, Charlie is idealistic, Vaggie tries to ground her in reality. When creating jewelry, I promise this will make sense in a second, it used to be common to insert a piece of foil behind a gemstone, as this caused the stone to sparkle and shine. The properties of the foil made the ones of the gemstone more noticeable, which ended up being the namesake for a narrative role. The foil, a character that exists to highlight the properties of someone else. As this happens via contrast, the role tends to fall into the hands of the antagonist, but Charlie and Vaggie are far more interesting. Their differences doesn't cause them to fight, it leads to them covering each other's weaknesses and being Hell's greatest power couple. That's an amazing concept. But as usual for the Helliverse, the problem isn't the idea, it's the execution.
If I can't help you, what's the point of me?
Don't be so hard on yourself. You do so many things like... No, everything she does is for the hotel actually. Which makes a shocking amount of sense for her character. Vaggie's biggest, almost a plotline this season was her change of name, as the one we got to know her by was invented by Adam. Her not having a prior one to fall back on heavily suggests that Vaggie was created for the exterminate. That would mean Vaggie is 7 years old? Army. Let's say Vaggie was created for the army. Fighting these battles, someone else's battles, is all she's ever known. And after getting banished from heaven, she was found by Charlie almost immediately, which led to her simply fighting Charlie's battles from there on out. Vaggie doesn't know how to live life for herself, which would be incredibly interesting. If we ever talked about that, her being this way in season 1 makes complete sense. You wanna establish the norm before you change it, but the norm is Vaggie not being her own person. And we aren't changing that. Can you name me a single action of hers in either season that isn't for Charlie? Because I can't. Her character being forced into this mold not only causes her to feel incredibly one-note and monotonous, it makes exploring her personality traits much harder, as the only chance of expressing them is via actions for Charlie. And I wish we got to see them more clearly, because I really like what lies underneath. I not only like it, I subscribe to it too. Vaggie is by far the most openly hostile person in the hotel, a frequent target of hers being Alistair. She clearly neither likes nor trusts him, yet Vaggie is willing to make a deal with him just so she can finish a commercial for the hotel. The lengths she is willing to go to are really interesting. She even speaks to Lucifer and acts behind Charlie's back. For Charlie's sake. But why is she doing all of this? Her love for Charlie is obviously part of that, but is her not having her own purpose in life one too? Maybe. We never explored it. Is doing all of this, like Rosie suggested, Vaggie's way of trying to redeem herself after the exterminations? Maybe. We never explored it. I certainly can't think of any scene which indicates this, but Husk reveals that Vaggie hates herself, and I can't think of any scene which indicates that in the first 2 seasons either. I love how Vaggie acts, but why does she do it? Your guess is as good as mine. And that kinda sucks, especially as Vaggie does have a storyline purely dedicated to how she thinks in both seasons. The first one culminates in Out for Love, in which Camilla teaches Vaggie to fight for love instead of revenge, which is mind-boggling as fighting for Charlie is literally all she did the entire season. We haven't seen her lusting for revenge a single time, and in season 2, it's Vaggie changing her name from Vaggie to Vaggie. Why does she do that? Why is the change this symbolic enough for her? No idea. We don't get to see her make this decision, and she doesn't even talk about it. It's genuinely hard to believe how underexplored her character is, and I do not mean underdeveloped. Vaggie seems pretty complex and well thought out, we just don't get to see any of it? Do you know which one of her storylines tells us the most about her? Her being incredibly jealous of Emily, being visibly angry whenever she and Charlie touch, yet Vaggie never turns toxic because of this. She doesn't have her jealousy under control, but she does make sure Charlie doesn't suffer under it. Never says anything negative to or about Emily, never discourages Charlie from talking to her. And in season 2's finale, after everyone comes together to stop Vox's weapon, she was able to get over her jealousy. Vaggie has 2 important storylines, all about how she thinks. And the most interesting one is the third, which doesn't include a single spoken word. Vaggie is like a complex and beautiful painting, and we are stuck looking at the frame. The most obvious way of showing us how Vaggie became this person, how and why she thinks and acts the way she does, is exploring her backstory in Heaven, but the closest season to got to that are a few flashing pictures. That is crazy. This seems like the exact type of thing Hasbin would make a banger song about. But speaking of songs, they pose what might just be her most under-discussed problem: Vaggie's VA. Don't get me wrong, Stephanie Beatrice does a great job when speaking Vaggie, especially in the second season, but she's horribly miscast. Why did Hasbin settle for a voice actress who cannot sing the voice?
It didn't explain anything about how we're trying to save demons from extermination, which is the whole fucking point.
If you take a look at older Disney movies, you'll notice it was pretty common for a character to have 2 voice actors, one for speaking, one for singing. But these 2 actors sounded alike. Vaggie has 1 VA, and she doesn't. The moment Vaggie starts singing, her voice changes drastically, even between songs. This creates a massive distance between Vaggie and Vaggie in some of her most emotionally impactful moments. Imagine if during Gravity, Lud suddenly started speaking German.
There's no remedy, but to burn them all. Ich hab noch einen Job zu tun, nicht fertig die Mission.
Alter, was ein Bitte dieser Dub. Season 2 doesn't really run into this problem, as Vaggie is only a notable part of one song, Easy, in which they manage to convey the feeling of it being a song by Vaggie pretty effectively via instrumentals. And this isn't the only problem season 2 tried to fix. For example,